Hi, my name is Ken Asselson. I wrote the Microbiome Prescription website, and this is an introduction to a medical professional who has just gotten an email like the one on screen saying, hey, guess what? One of your patients has done a microbiome test. It can be many different providers of tests, and has uploaded or transferred their data to the site. And the site is an expert system AI. Unlike ChatGPT, it does not do hallucinations. Everything can be traced back to the information, the source information easily. And it's basically done by a manual review of 20,000 plus articles, from which about 7 million facts are being extracted about the microbiome. It is free for individual use and works with many different microbiome tests. So, it gives you some good results, and this allows you to log in, use the system with your patient's data, and do some tuning and discussion and exploration without having to learn a massive amount about the microbiome. I do have an example right here for a report on depression to give the example of what is possible. So if you click here, and so that gives you to a general page. It gives you some general information, but then it identifies which bacteria are associated with depression according to the medical literature, and each one here is a link to the study. And if you click on one of them, like for example Lorimococcus, let's go to one, let's just click 26, and we'll take you to the bottom of the page, which could take a few seconds to load, and gives you the link to exactly where the information came from. So you know where it is, the publication date. You can go to PubMed or the other sources and look up the article and read it if you have any questions about the finding. So as I said, everything is documented. Underneath the bacteria are cross-validated suggestions. These are the list of things which study has shown has helped people with one or another form of depression. And as before, every single item is linked to a study where the information comes from. So it's AI, but zero hallucinations, and you can see how often something is suggested. Like that one has a lot of studies saying it helps, which means that probably that's something you want to consider adding. Another one here is planetarium is there, and then exercise is very common to help, and some other things. Some things are just singleton, or some things may not be available where you are, but you can see what the things is now. These are things which are not just helps it, but which has been computed by this expert system to correct the bacteria shifts here. So it's not just help, but it is suggested from what the type of microbiome shifts you are trying to correct for. Hence the word cross-validated, and not just giving you suggestions, giving you suggestions that will fix what is up at the top in terms of bacteria. And below it, we have something special which comes not from studies, but from making statistical analysis of some large data sets. And what it does is trying to fix the bacteria shifts up above, which probiotics are computed to have the highest probability. Now here we see the first couple of things are all probiotics in development. They're not currently available, unfortunately. But down, if you go down, you see some like here, Felicin, which is available, Akkermansia, which we saw up above, and they're ranked order as into which ones has the most impact on the collection of bacteria identified up above. So it gives you this one is actually based on more studies, more information than the direct suggestions are, but it's not based on clinical study. On a clinical study, it's based on a large scale sample of samples of healthy individuals and working there. So we have planetarium there, we have Akkermansia. Things would be in different order because of the amount of data we have. Now, if we go down a little bit further, we go and there's everything there. And what is here is simply because things are called different things in different parts of the world. We go and give all the alternative names. So, and now we go down to one more. So if you want to look at a particular bacteria which is being identified and say, okay, so we have the Centromycin here, and what will correct this shift we see up above? Or here we have quercetin there, and here we have all of the studies showing that quercetin will modify that particular bacteria. And you notice that we up to 2,251 studies being referenced. The study may not be at the bottom of the page, but if you just click here, and it will go and oops, take you over to the actual study. So it just doesn't just give you a link to a summary. Actually, for the higher number one, it takes you directly to a study simply because it's much easier for you to do that way. So that gives the absolute breakdown for what impacts which, and you can make use of that in terms of deciding what to do, because there's a lot of suggestions and you have all the information assembled for you with the references, which is or should be exactly what you want. However, it's probably maybe too much information. But so let's go down and see what the next section is. The next section are items which we have computed will help the dysbiosis, but which have not been studied for, in this case, for depression. In other words, we don't have any clinical studies supporting its use. Up above, we had clinical studies supporting the use, and we had expert system computation saying we should do that. So we had cross-validation. We had two different roads, both resulted as us coming to Rome. This is a alternative way of doing it, but we don't have the clinical study to support it. However, it is ranked order by things to do it. So you have there now, every item is generally computed to be independent of the other. So the result is you do not have to do everything. It's not a protocol. These are individual suggestions, and you can cherry pick whichever ones you think will work best, as many or as few as you feel. But the key thing is, and what you will almost never find in study, is things to avoid. These are things which will contribute to the dysbiosis continuing or getting worse. So those are things you want to encourage a person to remove from the diet. And that is something which is usually not done in studies. People seem to want to be extremely positive there. And now below there we go, and we have all of the references there, and as you saw up above, we have several thousand reference for almost everything. Okay, so that is the type of data which you can get out, and let's go in and actually doing it. Let's go back to here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into this automatic login link. And now it takes you over to the site and automatically logged in. Now we have a simple UI, which is what I generally suggest people make use of, because unless you want to invest heavily in the time and resources to understand more about the microbiome, it gives you everything you want in a condensed version. So you have here, first of all, I know what. Okay, you have here, you will have the name of the test and who is email. In this particular case, we have some samples which were uploaded in this account by itself, and we have some which were transferred. Anyone which is shared to you has the email of the person who shared it to you, so you know which one is which. If you get a whole bunch of people sharing with you, now you can identify which one is which, whereas the name like that really doesn't give you that much information. So you have it here, and now we have a couple of choices. First of all, you can reduce the suggestions to certain types of things. For example, you don't want antibiotics, or you do want antibiotics, or you only want antibiotics. It can be your choice. So you do that, and now all you need to do is you click suggestions. Now, by default, it goes to Nullbus. Nullbus simply says, okay, we're just going to look for everything which is out of range. Maybe a red herring out of range may have no impact whatsoever on the condition or the symptoms, but we're just going to toss the kitchen sink at it. So if I click here and click, it will go off, compute in real time. It will identify the bacteria. In this case, we have 106 bacteria identified as being too high or too low by our reference ranges. And then it goes down and gives suggestions to take and suggestions to avoid. It will give you the name of some commercial probiotics, if any are found. Sometimes there are none. For some situations there will be none. So that is the application. Much better one is beginners. Let's go over and let's do bottom side here. And when it goes through, it will go through, and the system will compute forecast what the probable symptoms are. In this particular case, I see MECFS, so I'm going to just click a couple more, and it goes and predicts the likelihood of having it. And often people have reported it has an 80 or 90% correct prediction. Why is that important? Because the mechanism of prediction, we go backwards, and we use that to determine which bacteria are the ones you want to modify. So we have a bunch there. Again, as before, we just go and click Get Suggestions, and spin it around, and remember, and we have the suggestions here. And guess what? Instead of 110 bacteria, we have only 10 bacteria which are identified as connected with that condition in terms of our database analysis. So these are ones which are the likely causes, and down below you'll get the suggestion based on there, and the weight is the relative confidence we have. It doesn't indicate how much it does, but it is a function of how many bacteria it appropriately corrects, and the number of studies which report that type of item is correct. So it is a weighted average for the confidence we probably have a correct suggestion, and goes down, and then again we have everything else. So nice simple way to reduce it. And symptoms, so you may want to enter symptoms. Symptoms is not available for all labs because we have to have enough samples to be able to identify the patterns. And for things from some labs, for example, Biomicide, we have 4,500 samples annotated with symptoms, and that allows us to use some good statistical mining. Now, if you go over to PubMed, we go and based on the study what are reported on PubMed, we go and indicate where you have a parent match. PubMed is far less accurate than our own analysis, and there's a whole lot of reasons why. So you can go and say, okay, asthma, psoriasis, oh, alert rain now. So okay, so that then becomes our new mechanisms of filtering out bacteria, and that is based on published medical studies. So let's see what happens. We've got suggestions here. We have listed what we're doing, and we have 11 bacteria suggested. We had 10 using symptoms. We have 11 using PubMed. We had 110 when we tossed the kitchen sink at it. Generally, you want to have a smaller number rather than more number. And for all of them, we have this type of calculation, but we also have the experimental probiotic based on our tax R2 site. And this site calculates whether or not it's good or bad. And the ideal thing is to, no such luck here, is to have a probiotic which is good only and not bad. So you can go and see what it is. Again, it uses far more comprehensive data sets than is done in clinical study. And personally, I find it seems to give much better suggestions, more accurate, more successful in users responding to it. Okay, so that is it. Now let's go back and take a look at there. We have other ways of doing it, but these three are the ones to are just suggested are the best. Generally, the best is always using the symptoms. Second best is the PubMed. Third is Sergeant Kitchen Sink. The rest of them are more complicated to do, understand. None of them give a spectacular better result always. Sometimes they give interesting results. And that is basically it. Straightforward. Select what you want. Take a look at the suggestions. Oh, last thing. Remember I showed depression before? If you click here, it will go and list everything which you have. And for example, here we have depression. It's a 39 percentile match, which means 6% of the people have more symptoms, and you're in the bottom bit. It could be there. Allergies is there. Let's try. Let's try irritable bowel syndrome. Click here. You can click more than one and do a get report. The top section is generic wisdom generally obtained from a ChatGPT. And then we have the bacteria identify, where the literature comes from, cross-validated suggestions, and go from there. So again, the interesting thing is often the usual lactobacillus do not show up that often, or if they do it, they're a rare one. Plantarum is a frequent one, but Akkermansia shows up. But let's not get too distracted with rambling onward. So that one was there. And that basically covers it. There is a quick health analysis for the sample. And it goes and does, for example, bacteria which are generally associated in the oral cavity in the mouth or the nostrils are there. And generally, the mouth and the nostril is what repopulate the gut. So the ones which are listed here may have some significance for why the dysbiosis it's basically what's going to repopulate the gut if you're not careful. General health indicators, and it goes and says, okay, there's 14 bacteria which has been identified as too high, and we have the links to the studies where the information is coming from. And then we have common ratio, like for example the butyrate ratio. You are the 1 percentile. That means 99% produce more butyrate according to how we are calculating it than you do, which means okay, you are pressing a shorter butyrate goes through, and it always gives things by percentile because that is generally the easiest to do. And we're 23 percentile means 75% of people have more, 25% of people have about the same or less. So, and it goes on page and page, and if you want to see all on a page, you just go back and just click all on now. Everything will be listed on the page there. You can go and do things like click here, look at the percentile ratio and whatever. So it's rich in information, probably too rich in information for most people. Okay, that's it. That's a quick intro. There's lots of YouTube videos by me on everything. I'll leave you to by all the spreadsheets you can handle.